Hello, and welcome to the Libri Labra Book Club. I am joined today, as always, by my husband, John, aka BookTube Hubby, and also by Book Club VIP member Tom. And before I get into things, if you ever want to join us on camera for one of our discussions, you can do that by becoming a Book Club VIP member on patreon.com/Libri Labra. And there's some other perks for joining. You get to see bloopers and previews, and you get a custom bookmark. You also get priority commenting back in YouTube videos, and you get to be part of a Facebook group where we talk about the media that we're consuming, and also in a rotation where we vote for the books that we're going to be reading. This month, it was my choice, and one of the selections that I threw up was The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes. And as you may already know, lots of books are getting banned in Florida. I don't know if this specifically was on a banned book list in one of the counties in Florida, but a lot of the books that are being targeted are LGBTQ or books by BIPOC authors. And so I wanted to start prioritizing that a little bit more in what we're reading throughout the year. And also, John and I attended BookNet Fest not that long ago, and one of the authors there was on a panel, and she highly recommended this, so I wanted to make sure. And I apologize that I can't remember the full author's name off the top of my head. I will search for that later just to make sure that, you know what, I'll leave it in a comment, so that you could also check out her books. But we're going to talk a little bit about initial thoughts, and then we're going to jump into spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled and you haven't read it yet, I strongly suggest you go read it and then come back. So initial thoughts. John.
I didn't know what I was getting into, so I was like, okay, well, obviously it's what is it? The trope I'm looking for, coming of age type. So
how I don't know. I'll ask after. Okay, Tom, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, it's, I don't know, it seemed pretty obvious to me that, you know, especially after looking at Goodreads, that number one is YA, obviously. Number two, it's LGBTQ. The title doesn't give that away. Number three, it's going to be a romance. So we all know how this is going to turn out. So those are my initial thoughts.
So my first question to both of you was going to be, because I am a native Spanish speaker, so I know that my experience reading this is going to be completely different than the two of you. Did you look up anything? Did you just kind of took things in context whenever there was Spanish used? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. I guess it's later, so I'll wait.
Spoilers?
Yeah.
Okay. But did you?
Why too? Yeah. Go ahead.
Did you ever feel like you were missing something, or do you feel like the context pretty much?
I mean, I understood what was being portrayed. At least I hope.
I can't remember if this book did it specifically, but I know a lot of times when I read Spanish, and it kind of frustrates me as a native Spanish speaker, but is that they'll say something in Spanish and then immediately say the same thing in English. So it's like written there twice, which to me is not the same thing as like figuring out what's being said through context.
Right.
You know, and I would, as a reader who speaks Spanish, I would much rather figure it out through context.
Right.
So that I'm not reading the same thing multiple times throughout the whole book.
Me.
Right. Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I agree. It shouldn't be like I shouldn't have to be handheld.
Okay. But you didn't care enough to take the time to look up, like to actually translate anything.
But what am I? What was I translating?
I'm not judging you. I'm just asking you.
I'm saying, but what am I translating? Because I understand a little bit of Spanish.
That's true. Okay, just curious. Because I know if I were to read things in different languages, like at one point I was reading something that had Welsh in it, and I was like, I wanted to know. I wanted, like the context, not that it wasn't enough, but I wanted to know more. So I usually do look up what the translation means, because I want to know exactly what's being said. Okay, so at this point we could definitely jump into spoilers. I feel like there was a lot of surprises in this book. It starts off. Are you okay?
Yeah, I was leaning in so
okay.
they could see me better.
It starts off a certain way, and I think you can kind of assume what's going to happen. Like Tom assumed there's going to be a romance, but I think it still went in several different directions that I wasn't expecting. Like, I guess I wasn't expecting the whole storyline with the brother. I wasn't expecting the way things played out with the parents, and I really appreciate that, because despite maybe that initial romantic predictability, at least there was still what I felt were wild cards in the story. Did you guys feel that it was just predictable the kind of whole way through, or?
Who should answer first? I guess I don't know.
John is nodding his head. Is that your answer?
Like, it's predictable. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It will. We know the destination the train's going to get to. It's just a question of how it gets there, in my opinion.
Right.
And there were some surprises. I mean, it's good to see Yamilet, being attracted to someone of Asian descent rather than somebody white, which is what would probably normally happen. The fact that, and I don't know why I thought this, but there was a scene on the playground before it was revealed, and I don't know why I thought this. Like, what if both of them are gay? Or at least by saying, I don't know why I thought that, but it's like, holy crap, there it is. So yeah, so there are some surprises, but the other one I think, which I think she did a good job with, was with Bo and her parents meaning well.
Right.
Gave her all this Chinese heritage stuff. It's like, I'm reminded of a friend in college who, not that it's quite the same thing, but who unfortunately made it known she liked Norman Rockwell stuff. So for years afterwards, all she got was Norman Rockwell
stuff. Yeah, that happens.
So, but like I said, that was just interesting, because she wants something of herself as well. So those are some of the surprises, I think. Not necessarily narrative surprises, but just the way they were handled. I thought it was well introduced.
Yeah, I agree that the stuff with Bo was definitely well introduced, and like that has to be such a challenge. The way she was expressing it, she wanted to be able to talk to her parents about it, about how it made her uncomfortable, but obviously she didn't want to seem ungrateful, because here they are trying really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll never really fully understand
Right.
that experience. So
mm-hmm.
I would imagine that's super challenging for a parent as well. Like, what do you do? How do you?
I mean, would it be better if they just didn't do anything? I mean,
right. I don't think that's the answer either.
No,
right.
No, it seems like the extreme opposite, and it's worse.
Right. Yes. So out of the options, this was the best of, at least you could say reining it in is a little bit better than, can I have some of my own culture? But on her own terms, which was important.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was just so many important conversations that was taking place in this book. And as someone who also went to Catholic school, it's a lot. It's intense, especially, like I think Bo had done a whole presentation on, or at least was talking to or trying to talk about abortion. And like, I remember being in high school, and we had the worst abortion posters all throughout the school, where so like every day I was being like bombarded with a poster of like a fetus, and it would say like, the heartbeat develops at this point, da 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 da. And like, so every morning I had to go up the stairs and I had to go past that poster.
Mm-hmm.
And so just a lot of the conversations that were being had in the book were just very relatable, like not surprising at all that this book has won like 3 different awards that has been put on here. And it's also not surprising why Moms for Liberty or whoever else doesn't want people young adults reading stuff like this.
Well, to that point, one of the other things it did well, I thought, was showing how what were their names? Amber and her boyfriend David, was it?
Was it the two that were making out all the time?
No. That was in the other clique. Jenna and her clique. No, this is in their group of four. It was Bo, Yamila, and these two, Amber, and I can't remember her.
Oh, right.
And how the boyfriend
Hunter, right?
No, I thought Hunter as well, but that was the one who was after Yami.
Okay.
And just making the point that when I'm assuming it's David, so I'm going to say David asks Amber to the prom. It's a public display of affection. That is something that Bo and Yami can never have in the same way. And I thought that was very telling as well.
I mean, they had to create their entirely own prom.
Right.
Yeah.
And not that you couldn't see that coming, considering, where they were going to have it, but, still. But even just like the proposal, like,
Right, yeah.
People say, "Oh, I don't like that." So, well, what the hell business is of yours? It's like, change the channel then.
Right.
Whatever, yeah.
She didn't ask you.
Yeah. So, another thing I liked about it was with Bianca. Although she was a little bit obsessive about it, like in the first part of the book. Yeah, I have to think it was difficult because, her Yami coming out to Bianca, and Bianca thinking maybe we don't know, that them just being really good friends, and this is something else now. Now this changes the match, sort of a thing. So it just made, I don't know, as somebody who is not part of that lifestyle, it illustrated some things which I would never have thought of before, So
I think also the way they portrayed the Yami's family being so religious, and the uncomfortability that she dealt with whenever she heard her mom say something about gay people or LGBTQ people, like the way she had to just hear that and accept that and process that, and like just how much fear she had. I don't know, no child should be so afraid that their parent is going to disown them for wanting to love someone different, and it's just so unfortunate that that's the way things are. Not all the time, thankfully, but
well, unfortunately, you don't realize what you're sowing until you reap it a lot of times, because the mom's like, well, why don't you just come talk to me? Well, considering everything that went on before, yeah, and you don't realize it, that this actually applies to your family, and so.
And I mean, but that's kind of why the way the story was told really threw me for a loop, because it seemed like Yami was so close to her dad. Right? She was close enough to her dad that she felt that she could tell him, and it turned out to be he was the one that
there had to be somebody in the book that was like the quote unquote villain, for lack of a better word.
Right.
But my question about this is, what do you think led to the narrative decision of having the father essentially off the board, like and deported back to Mexico? Do you think it would have been a better story if he was lived with them?
I think the choice was mostly just to demonstrate that is a reality for families. Okay. Like that's something that happens. Yeah. And also, I know there was other parts of the book where I think it was also used to demonstrate kind of the racism in the students, because at some point they were, I don't know what happened. I don't remember the exact situation of what happened, but I know somebody was shouting, La migra, and like, Yami reflects on how little they understand what that means. And like, what that actually looks like and why, you know, hearing that would be so fearful for her and her family, or, you know, anybody else who is an immigrant. And so it just feels like it was woven into the story in other places versus just the fact that he wasn't there. Though I do think, had he been there, that exchange would have been more cutting, like just a deeper wound, because they would have had to show him cutting her off in a different way.
Now he would be the one to throw her out of the house, sort of a thing. So, but I don't know. Maybe Reyes didn't figure. Well, I don't need that much drama. You know, it's enough that, you know, the what is it? The radio silence was enough, which was
Yeah. Something that like made me ask a lot of questions was, and I wonder if it's just something that happens in Latino families, or I just happen to be able to relate to this, but I always felt like my mother was so much closer to my brother than to me.
I was wondering about that, because I didn't know if that was a cultural thing or not.
I kind of feel like it might be a cultural thing, because not only did I have that experience, but I can see it in my mom's generation that she had that experience. And like I even reached out to my aunt and I was like, is this a Latino thing? Does this just happen? So I kind of think it is. I'd like to look into that further, but you know, when my aunt was just saying that there's just so much machismo in Latino culture as it is, and that the men tend to be favored, right? The men are the ones who are supposed to go out and be strong and do all the things and accomplish all the stuff, and the women are supposed to stay home and take care of the family. So, you know, any girl that deviates from that, whether she's strong or ambitious, I think they kind of get like beat down a little bit with their responsibilities and their role and what they're supposed to do so that they conform, it feels like. So I just, while I was reading that, I just remember like reflecting on that and be like, ew, it feels very, very familiar in regards to the way her mother was so obsessed with her brother and didn't really treat her the same way, with the same care or the same interest, or, you know, and here was Yami always wanting to connect with her mother and do stuff for her mother. And had it not been for her dad, she wouldn't even have allowed Yami to like try to take her business to the next level.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. But what I did like was how Caesar went to go visit his dad and came back with like a different perception. Because sometimes what ends up happening is because the boy receives the attention that he does, he's kind of a little bit blinded to the other stuff that the parents are doing, or how the parents are treating their sibling, or like, so the fact that he was able to recognize whatever was going on, or how his dad was like.
His dad was seen to be passively aggressively trying to tell somebody. If he was complaining about it the whole time, if that was the thing he was worried about.
Right.
Obviously the dad didn't know at the time, but like, that has like a twofold impact, because now Caesar's processing his own like bisexuality and hearing that, and then also seeing how his sister's being talked about in the situation. So it sucks. It sucks how much trauma is like passed on. I had started another Latinx book today, and it really struck me like the power struggle that was happening and how familiar it looked like just culturally. But these are like important stories that like teenagers need to hear. Trying to think of the friend group. I think the racism was done well, in the sense that it's like it felt very real and familiar to me. like their microaggressions, like everything. It didn't feel like it was just shoved in there. It just felt like such a reality. Like it was really well written, I think. Did you guys feel like there was just enough characters in the story? Did you feel like there was too many characters in the story? Did you feel like there was any character that should have gotten a little bit more stage time?
Well, I think that I would go back to the dad because he seems to be like the important one. If anybody was supposed to get more airtime, I think it would be him. You know, because I mean the rest was all. I think if you added in any other characters, they would be largely superfluous because the story got told without them the way it is.
Right.
However, the dad is part of the story. Now, I think I would have liked to have seen more of that in-person dynamic. You know, I know I keep going back to that, but you know, I think it may have made an inch more interesting novel.
Are you surprised that the mom just cut him off?
Well, she didn't. Well, she cut him off, but it's not a permanent thing. I mean, that's what I got. You know, if he comes around, then we'll talk. But until then, you know. Plus, also to her credit, you know, it's like, well, if I forget the way she said it, but it's like, you know, if the religion says I can't love my kids, then it's the religion that's wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I couldn't tell as I was reading it if it was just like her understandably super angry in the heat of the moment kind of saying things, but you know, maybe she would talk to him after she cooled down, or if it was a very final, like, get out of here.
I didn't gather it was final. I just thought, like, for now, if you're going to be an asshole like this, well, you know, sayonara. But, you know, if you decide to change your colors, come on back. We'll have a talk. Sort of thing.
That's so wild to me. I know, like, I'm trying to figure out, because I know my son doesn't like me talking about him. But
a person I know, yeah.
No, you know, ever since my son was a little kid, we would always say to him, me and his dad, whenever sexuality ever came up, whether it's like in a show or a movie or like whatever, and there was discussions happening, we'd always say, well, you know, if you were gay, we would still love you. We would always love you no matter what. And, you know, my son would be like, but I'm not gay. And we'd be like, okay, but if you were, you know, we just want you to know. And so, like, we tried to do our best to make sure that he knew that he would be loved regardless of whatever decision he made. And so, like, it's so hard for me to process a parent that's like, but if you were that, I wouldn't love you anymore. You're not part of this family. Get out. Like, I can't.
No, that's the cultural and religious message. I mean, excuse me, case in point, you know, look at the priest telling Jamal, oh, you got to break up. I'm sorry, to Cesar, you know, break up with Jamal as your
to get right with God. Yeah.
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 What the hell is that now? Yeah. Talk about overreach. But anyway.
And just to, like, love, like, the purpose is love. Do you know what I mean? Like, crazy.
Yeah, but this is also the same church. Keep in mind that they, you know, had these orphanages for the unwed mothers' babies that they would just take off the unwed mothers and give them up for adoption and stuff. So yeah, it's bigger than, you know, just, oh, you break up with this person. So to have the unmitigated audacity to do something like that.
I think one of my favorite new words came from this book.
Which is
what?
The caucasity.
Yes, caucasity. That was good.
I love that. I enjoyed that.
One thing, since they're talking about language, to answer your question, that's right, that you asked at the beginning. One of the things, I think words are important. So if it's a language I don't know, I will look it up. Fortunately, though, It's a little advertisement for Amazon Kindle. You can just highlight it and say translate, and here
really?
it is. Yeah.
Well, thank you, because I did not know that was a thing at all.
Yeah, at least on the tablets it is. It's like, I just highlight it. It's like, oh, here it's Spanish and it's this. It's like, oh, okay.
That's awesome. I don't think I read on Kindle as much as I read like physical books, but still, that's good to know.
Well, it also has a dictionary too. Like for
that I have definitely used.
Yeah,
but I didn't know.
But right next to it, well, they have the dictionary, they have the translate, and then they have the Wikipedia. So depending on which one you need, it's right there. And you go, oh, there it is.
I don't know how I feel about the Wikipedia being the third option, but okay.
Well, if it's something more in depth, like a historical thing, I don't know. Like, I don't know, Hastings 1066. That's more than a dictionary entry.
I get you.
Yeah. So.
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking about Caesar and the things that he just he went through. There was a scene where he was in the hospital, and they're talking about, because they were saying he had to go to some involuntary inpatient program,
right.
And there's a moment where he turns to his mom and he's like, "Is that okay?" And she goes on to further explain what that look was and what that question was, but that is such a reality for so many people that they need certain care, and the first question they have to ask is, can I even afford this?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was I don't know if it was eye-opening or relatable, but it was definitely a moment that made me take pause, because I completely understood as soon as he turned to his mother, I knew exactly what he was saying and what he was asking. So I think there's just so much that was done. Really
well, in that regard, throughout the book, maybe he's saying how she and Caesar have this telepathic connection, but she was blindsided just like her mom was.
Right.
So.
And then her mom blaming her was not not cool, but also relatable.
But kind of expected.
How could you let this happen?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're supposed to be your brother's caretaker. It's like, well, no, you failed. It's like, well, no, hey, wait.
Yeah. Why are you putting any of that on Yami?
Right.
Because she couldn't put that on herself.
I know it sounds to me like there's more than enough to go around. Yes, she was feeling, oh, I should have done something. And well, Yami's, also should have done something. Not that exonerates her, but they both should have known. Is the feeling I got.
Wasn't he the older brother?
I thought so. I thought he was.
And she's supposed to be there for him.
Because I told you the women are the caretakers.
Right.
So
right.
They have to, they stay home and they make the ship run. And they take care of everybody. They can't have their own needs and wants and aspirations, because that interferes with being able to care for the family. But there's just so much pressure that's put on girls. I mean, I was the oldest, and my mom not being the best mom, so much of the childcare fell on me. And that's such a weight and a burden, and it sucks. It's hard.
Well, I think that's true for women in a lot of cultures. The women are there to basically take care of the parents in their old age, sort of a thing. In some cultures, so good, better, and different. One thing that really irritated me, and I don't know, it seemed like she took a page out of Chanel Clayton's book. Clayton had her beating heart, this is like holding hands. It's like, okay, enough already. It's like every other page, we're talking about hands. It's like, we get it. You don't have to focus on that.
I did not pick up on that. I didn't notice
Really?
that. Yeah, it
Oh,
didn't
okay.
stand out to me.
Oh, it did to me. It's like, after the
Did it
first
to you?
I mean, I noticed it. It was also, she did it with other characters too, not just them two.
Right.
So she mentioned that Yami noticed how close Caesar and Jamal were walking, but they weren't actually holding hands, but they had touched, they had rubbed each other's hand
I do
close enough
remember,
each time that they might as well have been.
Mm-hmm. But that's apparently the only way that they can show intimacy in the book, which I thought was odd. Yeah, and it didn't have to be this holding hands, like maybe just touching the shoulder or something like that, just something for a little bit of variety. So I get the reason it was done, the way it was done, but I don't know. I think I could have used a little bit more variation in it. That's all. Now, would I have thought that if I hadn't read Clayton's book? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, hers were very obvious.
Yeah.
I thought painfully obvious.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 of her other books too that I've been meaning.
Yeah, that's a trilogy, I understand. Are those the 2 books that you have?
I think so. Because I have, the next one is like about her sister being like some kind of a spy or working with the CIA or something like that. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to go back and check, but yeah. Trying to think of who some of the other characters were in the story.
Well, you had the one on the nose named Karen, which again, get it, little on the nose, but I get it. And Jenna and the other, was it Amy that actually came over to sit with them at lunch or whatever it was? Like she switched sides.
I don't remember if it was Amy.
I don't remember that name either.
Okay.
But
it was in the initial clique of 3 girls.
Yeah.
Karen and this other one.
Yeah, and she eventually realized that they were.
Yeah. And the third one's always like the peacemaker. And then
was it like, Emily?
I don't know.
Maybe. I feel like Emily sounds closer to what I remember than.
That's fine.
Than
yeah. Well, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So
that's sad that nobody can really actually remember her name.
She's not really in the book all that much, other than, like I said, as a peacemaker. Yeah. Like, oh, they didn't mean it, or this, that, and the other. It's like, oh, yeah, they kind of did. Or if they didn't, they're ignorant of its meaning. That may be worse. It's like.
It's such a complicated and difficult world for young people growing up, and especially people of different, like for minorities of different descent or different race or whatever, because so much is growing up near whiteness and trying to assimilate and trying to not stand out and not be like, I just remember how much I wanted to be like part of the white cool kids group growing up, and the way they end up dealing with the microaggressions and the racism, like I've had conversations with people that have been like, oh, but they're my friends, like why did you deal with that, why, like and then just giving them a pass,
probably because they didn't want to make waves,
right?
Which is
but
fair.
Like there has to be a way to make change, though. Like,
yes. Well, the change would happen, like like what happened to Yami in the opening chapters of the book. They said, "Well, the hell with you guys. I'm going over here with these other people."
Or is the change going to start with Emily? I need to know her name now because So yeah, I mean, she didn't appear that much, so I don't know if I'll come across it.
See, well, again, on a Kindle, you just search for the name. Oh, there it is.
So like, will the change start with her because she was like more of an insider, and now she's like, I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Right.
I really liked that
Yeah.
when things happen with Yami and her promposal, that when I think it was the principal, right? The principal that called home,
Right.
That her mom stood up for her and.
Well, and that was one of the things. It's like, she, Yami in the, previous to that says, I checked twice, was okay. That they do this, and then when they found out, it was like, oh no, it's not okay. It's like, oh come on, you're changing the rules after the fact.
What did you think about the mom's? Again, she had good intentions, of course, but the mom's 360, like after what happened to Caesar, that she was like making bracelets and jewelry with rainbow colors and like.
I think the trauma or having Caesar actually be the one to go into the hospital was would have been very different if
it was Yami.
If Yami was the one being suicidal.
Wow. I mean, I don't think you're wrong, but
Emily is correct, by the way.
okay.
Did you want to know?
Okay. I put this away.
I think because Caesar was essentially like the golden boy, so like
he had to be the one to set the standard,
right,
for mom to be okay with it.
Well, plus two to your question, Desirai, converts make the best believers. So when somebody switches sides, they're like, oh, now I'm all totally 100% this side now, and yeah. That's what happens.
And again, I know her intentions are to be like, I love you guys no matter what. I support you. Like, It's just, but from their perspective, hearing, the things that she would say and then seeing that turn of events is kind of like, it almost seems fake, like it seems disingenuous, I guess.
Yeah, but again, she didn't think those terms applied to her family.
Mm-hmm.
Now that she knows that, it's a different story. Yeah. And and case in point with Caesar, it's like, why didn't you come and tell me? Well, so if there's a long history of what you've been saying about homophobic remarks and such, so an unfriendly atmosphere at the very least.
It was even said at the beginning of her when she said that she had a relationship with Jamal. Oh, thank God you have a boyfriend. I was beginning to think you were gay.
Right.
Oh my God, how do you say that?
And that's another thing that I don't think myself as a straight person would appreciate. Oh, you have to have a beard now, just to make yourself fit in. And even Yami was thinking about that with, I'm guessing it was Hunter. At some point. Just so that you get off my back already, sort of thing.
The scene where I guess this was after like Caesar ended up in the hospital. I guess his mom had taken his phone, and I don't know. I'm surprised that she went to Yami and she was like, "I think Jamal's cheating on you."
Yeah, but not. Hey, Caesar is with Jamal, which would have been evident from the text as well. So I thought that was interesting.
I wonder if I would I think I would, only because I tend to lean towards truth and doing the right thing. But like if I found out that my kid's significant other or whatever was cheating on them, if I would. Because who wants to be the person breaking the heart? I don't know.
Well, would you want to know the truth? That's the other thing.
Yes, I
Well,
would
then.
love to know the truth.
Yeah. Because then, after the fact, say, well, why didn't you tell me? Yeah, and then, well, that's a whole other set of circumstances. There are so many TV shows built on that. Like, I only because I finished it. The Arrowverse is like rife with those kinds of things.
What is it?
The Arrowverse. Arrowverse.
Oh, Arrowverse.
Oh yeah, we're gonna keep this secret, from you to keep you happy. It's like, well, dude, have you never watched the show? It never ends well.
No, it never ends well. But people, yeah, I feel like people do that all the time.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
Oh, the other thing was unexpected allies in the sense that, it turns out the art teacher comes out to Yami. It's about 3/4 of the way through the book. She's living a double life too. I mean, so it's not just when you're young; it's throughout life you're saddled with this. So.
I think it was also good how like they, obviously they were showing what it was like growing up in this religious family, Yami's family, and how they were talking about things, but then to see Bo with her parents and what they were like, and them being like more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I don't remember Bo's dad's name. Do you?
Rick?
Was it Rick? I thought he was like really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
a little creepy in parts, but yeah, cool.
But it seemed like he kind of maybe noticed that Yami was having a hard time with her dad or whatever. I don't know. It seemed like he was just trying to supportive.
I think he just noticed that something was off with Yami, and so he figured he'd ask. One of the things I did not like, now, clearly I am not the target demographic for this film, Selena, but they make this whole build-up about it, but then they don't say anything about it after they've watched the film. I was like, you had this whole big build-up, and now we're not going to get some comedy.
We're not even going to talk about it? Right.
Yeah. So.
I wonder if they just... Because this book was like 400 pages.
Well, a couple tree more wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't surprise me if maybe it was in there, but the editor was like,
no, you don't need it.
Chopped it for whatever reason.
And that's possible too. So. And they had the Ballet Folklorico, which sounded like it was cool.
Yeah, I wanted to see what that looked like because I had like a vision. I remember when I was really young, I watched some kind of like Linda Ronstadt special called like Canciones de mi Padre, and it was like all mariachi stuff. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, I remember watching it and enjoying the music and also seeing like the dance and stuff. And we're just seeing that Florico dancing and just being imprinted in my head as a kid with the skirts and how I remember like asking, like my family was full of seamstresses. So I remember being a little kid asking for a skirt like that, that I could wave around and just because they were always so cool and the way the colors are and stuff. That's awesome.
And I think also too related to that was Bo's reaction, because that's what really seemed to start the hey, I want my culture too. For Yami, this is something built for you. I want something built for me. And it's fair. So I
like that conversation happened because Yami was feeling insulted. Like I would have felt insulted too if I brought somebody to see something.
Looking at the phone,
and they're like staring at their phone. I know that whenever I like try to get friends to watch a favorite movie and they're on their phones, it like frustrates me so much. So I'm glad that it led to this very intimate conversation between the two of them. That they were able to talk about it. And that's just good to see in general, because a lot of times when something requires that much vulnerability, a lot of people just
let it go.
I don't know if let it go. They stew on it. They hold on to it. They don't talk about it. So,
well, in that regard, both of them have walls up in the sense that Yami saying, "Oh, I'm totally straight," and Bo saying, "Oh, I already have a girlfriend." It's like,
right.
Both of which apparently are not true.
Not true.
So who's in and who here?
Oh, we both just gay panicked. Okay, is that what you really call it though?
Because
that's an anxiety panic. A panic lie. It doesn't. Everybody does that, whether they're gay or not.
Well, in Yami's case, I could see it because after what happened with Bianca, so it's possible she wanted to avoid something like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. She was like, and I think the way she kept bringing up Bianca, the way she was so focused on that was because of how traumatizing and wounding that was to be so close to someone, to misinterpret something, and then to try to initiate something, and then not just have them say like, no, I'm not interested in that, right? Because like I think as a friend, that should have been what happened, but the fact that like, that she,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just that she completely like closed off Yami and then started telling other people and like.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know what happened. I mean, it's possible that Bianca was giving off certain vibes without realizing and saying, "Hey, I'm available," and not realizing, the receiving tower is receiving. So yeah.
But I mean, just the fact that like Bianca then went and started telling people about Yami, which that should be for Yami to tell.
Yes, that's her story to tell.
It just sounds to me like another closet white person that was scared to actually own up to their own feelings. Yeah.
Was Bianca.
That's what I mean. It's like we don't know what happened.
She was?
Right. I don't know. I'm
I didn't think she was.
No, that was my assumption, I guess.
No, I figured it was more just based on, I thought Bianca was also Mexican.
Oh, okay.
I thought their families were really close. I don't know. I might be misinterpreting that, but I thought it was more like.
Okay. That would make sense, because if the public school was more. Okay, I see what you're saying. But still, I just the other person dealing with their own, not knowing how to deal with their own internal thoughts or issues, and then lashing out that way. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, all of it's based in fear.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on with Bianca either, so it may be originally she was receptive, and then she said, no. Oh, wait, this is gay,
Right. I mean,
this is going to change everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I got to tell all these other people too.
And that was one point that Yami made. It's like, you have to come out to each person individually, each and every time. It must get exhausting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if I necessarily have any more to add or ask. So I don't know if you guys want to do final thoughts or not.
Yeah, we can do final thoughts.
Okay.
I need another snack.
Okay. All right, so ratings. I wanted to ask you this last night, but I knew you'd be like, wait for book club. What did you rate it?
Yeah, we need your authentic reaction. No acting here in this podcast.
I think it deserves 4 stars. I think it definitely got a. I read it. I blew. I was one of the. I didn't have a hard time. I didn't. But it wasn't like a. Oh God, I gotta read this. So, It was very well written. Things were displayed or actually laid out well and dealt with mostly well, I think.
I know
So
that at some point you and I had been talking about like the chapter titles or the
Yes.
the language being used, and like I know that you're not a teenager and you're not in high school,
mhm.
but do you feel like the language was fairly authentic or like
Oh yeah, no,
representative of like
I
that
understood.
age?
It's fine.
Did you find any of it funny?
There's a few things I chuckled at, I'm sure.
Oh.
Caucasity being one.
That was definitely something I laughed at. Good one, Caesar. Good one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was Caesar. What did you think of it, Tom? Would you rate it?
I gave it a 4. Like I said, it had additional interest because of the who was involved. You know, it being a gay or lesbian story as opposed to just here's another romance and two white people getting together. Plus, I mean, one of the things I like about the Outlander series is we get to see what happens after they get together. And with almost any other romance, it's like, unless it's a series, well, this is it. I would like to see how, things play out from there, sort of a thing.
Oh, it gets the meet cute. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's it. And not that the meet cute doesn't have its place, but it's like we all know it's going to happen. It's just a question of where and when. So, but also I would mention, for those who like this book strongly reminded me of a graphic novel. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Also
LGBTQ. So
I've been wanting to check that out.
So yeah, good read.
I think I would give it 5 stars. I feel like probably because I connected with it definitely from a cultural perspective.
Well, this book was more for you.
Yeah. And so I think I would give it 5 stars, and I think it was really well written. I love how the topics were all the themes were all handled with care.
Mm-hmm.
And there was even like an author's note. And so I appreciate the author's note that basically says this book deals with the issues of racism, homophobia, immigration, and the suicidal ideation and hospitalization of a character. I've done my best to depict these topics with sensitivity and care, but if they're difficult subjects for you, please take care of yourself and know that your mental and emotional well-being come first. And I didn't realize that there was like a preview for another one of her books at the end, so I'm probably going to take time to read it. But the other book, which I'd like to check out, is called the Luis Ortega Survival Club. And they've included the note from the author that says, this book deals with issues of bullying, slut shaming, rape culture, sexual harassment, and the aftermath of an off-page rape. I have done my best to depict these topics with care and sensitivity, and if they're difficult for you, please look after yourself and know
those are your trigger warnings. Got it.
Yeah. But there's like 3 chapters at the end of this, so I'm going to check it out. I'm like trying to decide if this is a book that I will reread or if I want to pass it on. I have there's a diverse little free library in our neighborhood that I've been trying to put books in. And with the book bans, I'm wondering if it would be better for me to share this out in the world. So I'm going to have to reflect on that. Buy another one and put it in there. Yeah, that works too.
One other note, if nothing else, I like the author already, because the very first Goodreads review is, I might be biased, but I thought it was pretty cool, by Sonora Reyes. It's like, oh, well done.
I know that people give authors shit for reviewing their own books, but I personally love it. I love reading what they have to say about their own book. It's like one rating. Okay, so what? They gave themselves 5 stars. I don't think it's bad. I enjoy that. The quirkier and and more creative, the better.
Well, again, it's about how you like the book. And then, well, yeah, shit, I'll give it 5 stars. And again, it's only 1 rating, so yeah.
So yeah, I definitely want to check out more of her stuff. Also, I love this cover. I feel like the illustration is just so beautiful.
Yeah, I showed it to my comic group because, and he's like, yeah, now you think that was a comic, like a graphic novel, but it's
Right.
not.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's cool looking. So yep, 5 stars from me, 4 stars from you guys. And
the next book.
well, first of all, I would like to congratulate us for getting caught up. We are now officially caught up, and so
Are we?
Yes.
Are we?
Yes. We were behind. We were several months
August
behind.
book will actually be August book.
Yeah.
If I understand that right.
Oh, this is
Correct.
August book coming up.
Yes.
Okay, so we actually did the Catholic school.
This was July's book.
This month's.
Yes.
Okay, good on go us.
Good on us. All right, so for August, this was Tom's pick, and we're going to be reading.
Well, your guys' pick. This is one of the 3 I
selected. Yeah,
proposed.
So we're going to be reading The Hobbit.
Yes.
By J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yes.
I started reading this years ago, and I was reading it on the train when I lived in New York, and I fell asleep every single time I started reading it. And it could have been the train, could have just been the motion of the train. So it'll be interesting revisiting this with an audiobook, because I didn't read audiobooks back then. So
yes.
Hopefully I'll be able to get through it without
falling. And both audiobooks are fantastic. So, I mean, Rob Inglis or Andy Serkis are good.
So it just feels like, part of the reason why I picked it was because of what was I reading? I was reading Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, and in it they start talking about The Hobbit. So I happened to be reading that while Tom was selecting his books, and so I was like, this might be a sign.
This is how we got here.
Well, it is a classic.
Yeah, right. I've also been focused on reading classics, so I look forward to this. And I've seen all the movies, so like, I should read the source material.
Well, reading the book will explain how they could have gotten 3 movies out of The Hobbit without going into it. So,
which is like, it's not, this copy is not that long, but
I know,
but the lines feel very close together.
Yeah, that's also true in the
very
book.
Dense.
But basically, what with the films, it's Tolkien will only mention like one thing in one line, but now we have like 3 or 4 scenes with this thing in the movie, so it's like that's how they got to.
That's interesting.
Yep. So
interesting.
All right.
I have to run to the restroom.
Okay. All right, hold on. Can you wait long enough for me to close things out? Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. So if you've made it this far, thank you for joining us. I hope you also enjoyed The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes. And hopefully you'll join us next month when we read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Once again, if you ever want to join us on camera for the discussion, you can do that by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/Libri Labra. And you would essentially have to become a book club VIP member because that is the tier that allows you to join discussions and everything else. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you all next month.
Bye guys.
Bye.